Hello, and welcome to the Astro Energy Astrology Show podcast with Astrologer Shelley Overton.
Hey, and welcome to the October 7th, 2021 edition of the Astro Energy Astrology Show podcast with me, your astrologer in Orlando, Florida, Shelley Overton. I want to welcome you here. We're going to go over the weekly astrology, and we're going to talk about what I've heard this week, which I am fascinated by and investigating a great deal of, which is the Pandora Papers. So if you don't know what that is, we'll discuss it. But first, we're going to go over the weekly astrology. Today is October 7th, like I said, and today Venus goes into Sagittarius at 7:21 a.m., which of course right now it is 1:09 p.m., and that means that it already happened. So now Venus, instead of being intense and emotive, she is very active and social and bubbly, optimistic. She looks for social events, and she doesn't want to necessarily be boxed in or held. She is going to be a very fun girl for a few weeks here while she is in Sagittarius. Let's see how long she stays there. She's going to be there until the beginning of November. Around the 5th of November, she moves into Capricorn and kind of settles down and gets her ducks in a row and starts planning for Christmas. But now she's looking forward to some travel, time away, weekend enjoyment, and we'll feel that influence. We've got Moon entering Scorpio, entered at 10:22 a.m. And so Venus exits Scorpio and Moon enters Scorpio. So while we thought we were getting away from some of the Scorpio energy, now we are immersed in it again for a couple days. And so let's see, about Saturday morning at 11:24 a.m., the moon goes into Sagittarius. Okay, I had to do something with this hair. It was annoying. So that's why I look different. Okay, so yeah, on Thursday today, we're going to have that moon in Scorpio squaring Saturn. So it's going to be about money and about career. And there is a friction that the moon brings in, especially in Scorpio, because Scorpio answers to Pluto, and Pluto's in Capricorn and Earth energy. And we're going to have Pluto in Capricorn answers to Saturn. So we've got Saturn in Aquarius, and Saturn in Aquarius is about freedom. Don't fence me in. Allow me to do what I need to do in my career. And so the moon is triggering this need for freedom. We can feel it more strongly this end of the week. That is an ongoing storyline about where do we want to be with our career? How are things working out? Do we have the autonomy and the independence to move forward with what we want to do? Are we being, restricted somehow? Pluto direct now really makes that change apparent. Again, moon in Scorpio means that you've got the energy of home and family in a sign that answers to Pluto. And then Pluto itself is in Capricorn, which rules the structure of your life, so to speak. It really is life purpose. And so we're really finding out how our life purposes look. So as we go into Friday, the sun joins up with Mars in Libra, and that happens right at midnight, just a minute after midnight Eastern. And the energy of sun and Mars, so obviously on the other side of the world where it's still daylight and bright, it's going to have a tremendous effect because our egos are represented by the sun. And in Libra, there is a strong desire to cooperate, to join forces with another. We need the balance of the other. And that being said, Libra is also a really great sign for triangulation, which means you have the balance of the scale, but you also have the fulcrum at the top. And so a lot of times when you see Libra energy, people express it in a way where they need an additional kind of third party referee almost. So it's the fulcrum energy. That's the third, the triangulation of having three. So it's not just two, you would think maybe balance for Libra, but it's not just two, it's always three. Okay, and that happens with Mars also right there. So ego of the sun and leadership, the drive to move forward with Mars and the two combined forces. So yes, it is overnight Friday, but it is also a building energy today on Thursday, but also, they're still very close in the sky, even throughout the day on Friday. So look forward to that being a very strong drive for being a couple, being together. I know it's affecting my daughter who is an Aries, so she answers to Mars. And she has someone coming in who they are very anxious to meet, and due to personal schedules can't meet till Sunday. But it's going to be fun, and I've got chills with this because we have some Sagittarius energy in the sky with Venus now. They're going to go out to a pumpkin patch, which is a really fun energy and a fun thing to do, and a little out of the normal day-to-day routine, which I think Sagittarius enjoys getting out and about. So get out to a pumpkin patch, and you too can enjoy this wonderful clear fall energy, which I'm really enjoying, by the way. Oh, let's see. I've got written down there are new commitments coming in, action with love and money, ideas. The ego is there but wants cooperation. And also, Moon in Scorpio can indicate surgery. It is legalities, it is law and politics. So, honestly, it would be, even though we're still on Mercury retrograde in Libra, could be a time we see forward motion with the budget, because it's about Moon in Scorpio represents the commitment to another, and also joint finances and government. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's forward motion with something associated with the budget. I know they've put a temporary ceiling raise on the budget. I know that seems like normal now. Every year we get this ceiling raise, and are we going to make our budget? I remember when President Clinton got the budget balanced. That means that we were not spending or taking any more money than we had. We haven't had it since that era. So let me tell you, being in a time where we spend more than we bring in, it's an interesting concept, especially in politics, where a lot of politics is, why are you spending? It's about money, spending, taxes, and what we're spending it on. So yeah, think about that for a little bit. Saturday, we have a retreat energy. It's good for meditation. There is going to be a square between, well, it's not Saturday, it's actually Sunday, a square between Neptune and the moon on Saturday in the evening. But there is a really good energy of going somewhere, awakening and seeking out higher spiritual understanding with the moon in Sagittarius. Again, it is travel, and it can be college, it can be people of other cultures sharing their awareness of how things are different between cultures. It can mean that we find out information about people who are foreigners, or even people and countries or leaders of foreign countries being in the spotlight at that time. We've got Sun and Mercury joined up on Saturday at 12:18 p.m. Eastern, 9:18 a.m. Pacific. And then we've got also Venus going into Sagittarius Venus in Sagittarius joining up with Moon in Sagittarius at 3:37 p.m. And then Mercury joins up with Mars. So a lot of conjunctions on Saturday, followed at the end of the day at 10:43 p.m. Eastern by a sextile between Saturn in Aquarius and Moon in Sagittarius. I actually think Saturday is going to be a pretty awesome day. Starts out the day with the Moon sextile Pluto in Capricorn, and Moon in Scorpio. And Capricorn is a really rooted in, because Capricorn's rooting, Scorpio is deep research and commitment and engagement with the process, with the understanding and the psychology of a situation. So it's going to be a really amazing day, starting out with this really rooted and grounded commitment energy. And then it escalates into playful, frivolous, more free-flowing energy. I've got chills. This is a really wonderful, happy, joyful day. We've got, I don't even see anything. I mean, it starts with a sextile, ends with a sextile. Venus, Moon, Mercury, and Mars all join up in positive signs throughout the day, chills all over. Saturday is a really lovely day. And Sunday, now, on the other hand, Sunday is a day of moving forward, thinking about moving. Again, Moon will be in Sagittarius, but squares Neptune. Later in the evening, we've got a couple sextiles that day as well, in conjunct between Uranus and Moon, which is both energies. Uranus and Moon in Sagittarius want freedom, but they go about it differently. Moon and Sag wants us to move forward and take action and be free, and Taurus wants us to be responsible, traditional, rooted in, practical, and quite slow, actually. So there's going to be kind of a differentiation between how we get where we're going and what we truly want to be doing, which is taking our time to understand it and know we're comfortable in that situation. But that's in part of the day. That's in the morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. And then the rest of the day, we have a sextile of Moon to Mercury, sextile of Moon to Mars, sextile of Moon to Sun in Libra, Libra, Moon in Sag. So it's about travel, it's about cooperation and balance and connecting. It's going to be a really nice day also in parts of Sunday for having a joyful weekend together, doing something fun. Evening, a little bit more of that moodiness because of the square to Neptune in Pisces. Could also mean that there is some event that makes us really step up and take notice that is much more emotional than we would care for. And then Saturn moves direct at the exact same moment that the Moon squares Neptune, which is 10:17 p.m. The two events in cooperation, in conjunction, which is pretty powerful. We've got a powerful day yesterday, which is the 6th. And of course, we have a couple different events coming out. We had Facebook getting a whistleblower in the news, which seems to be the focus of the news channels, which I'm kind of surprised at. But we also have the Pandora Papers, which were very significant in my mind. I actually feel like they will gain more legs as Mercury goes direct. All of these articles about the finances and wealth of many famous people in the world, it's thousands. So 11.5 million documents and a lot of information about world leaders and companies, corporations, shell companies, which if you're not familiar with what a shell company is, it's basically a company that they set up as a face of what the people who start it want to accomplish. So they basically create an identity and then do business under that name, but move money around and can even launder money through this company that is not an actual company. It's really just kind of a facade. So that's why they call it a shell company. So yeah, it's basically laundering money and moving money around so other people can't find out where it's at, who it belongs to. And that is what happened earlier in the week. And that was actually Sunday night. I did some research, pretty proud of my research on the Pandora Papers, because I found it with the release of the article on it from the entity, which is, I will say it in a minute here, but the entity that created this cooperation of journalists released the knowledge that they had all this data. And I researched the time stamp for that and found the exact time that was released, because we didn't really find out about it until Monday, October 4th, but it came in on October 3rd in the evening. And I found that exact time. So I'm really anxious to share that with you and what it's all about. I want to finish the week here though. Okay, Monday, the 11th of October, it is Indigenous Peoples Day and Canadian Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to the Canadian friends up north. And we have Moon entering Capricorn at 1:15 p.m. The day starts with a sextile between the Moon and Jupiter in Aquarius. Again, kind of continuing a lot of that lovely energy but it's just after midnight Eastern. So it's really not necessarily going to affect us the rest of the day, other than it imbues the rest of the day with that lovely start. So we have midday moon in Capricorn. So things kind of, I think of when Pluto went from Sagittarius to Capricorn. So the moon's going Sagittarius to Capricorn. So it is similar energy, and it will remind us of what that was. And that happened between 2007 and 2008. And that was when we saw the housing market go from highly optimistic to crash. And so it is reflecting that. Every month this happens, but for some reason in particular, it just draws my attention this time. And it is a Monday energy, and Monday is ruled by the moon. Moon enters Capricorn. It brings us down to earth and more practical and literal in our communication style. It does make us much more serious about career, about systems, about what we're really looking for out of the day and our lives in general. But it also is the energy, and I wrote this down earlier, of the lasting quality or sustainability of an event that starts then, which is like the Beatles. It reminds me of how the staying power of the Beatles is really a very Capricornian energy, and that it just makes whatever starts on that day very long lasting. So if you want to start something that's going to be around quite a while, Monday's your day. Tuesday of next week, the 12th, we got square, square, trine, square, square, and ends in a sextile. And so it's going to be Mercury in conjunct to Uranus at the beginning of the day in the morning, early in the morning. So it is kind of, again, the way the day starts out is Mercury in conjunct to Uranus. Communications around money and what happens with that. Again, because next week on the 12th is going to be the approach to the end of the Mercury retrograde, because Mercury goes direct on the 18th, right after Jupiter goes direct. And Jupiter, there's just a lot of information. I'm sorry, my nose is tickling. Happens because the angels come in and give me information. Apologize, but if I rub my nose, the angels. We've got the energy coming in of Mercury getting ready to go direct. And if you're really in tune with the planetary shifts, you'll start to feel it next week, probably early to midweek, of what's going to happen with communication. And then Jupiter direct is that bluntness of communication. So I absolutely think this coming week is going to be a watershed moment with information coming out. Remember, last week I discussed Mercury in the shadow period of Mercury, and then the retrograde period, and how as we move through October, we are getting information, but it hasn't really hit hard. I'll discuss that a little bit with the Pandora Papers, but yeah, it hasn't really hit hard. And I think that as we move towards the end of the week and into of next week, which is the 11th through the 16th, yeah, that we're going to really see it build up, and the information's going to fly so fast. I don't know how easy it's going to be to keep up with it, but a lot of things that have been going on behind the scenes, information research, especially because we're in that moon in Scorpio time over the weekend. This is a really big weekend for a lot of behind the scenes work. People are scrambling to get the information accurate and appropriate and ready to be released, because it's still going on. Let me tell you, that Mercury going direct next to Jupiter going direct the same day, bombshells. That's a bombshell time. That's the 18th. And that was what I was discussing a week ago. We have a couple times this month where there are clusters of planetary aspects and shifts that are going to just be, massive awakening awareness, because we're in the sign of Libra. It's air, it's understanding and information. Okay, so as we go through the week, I'm just going to touch on it a little bit more, and then we'll get to Pandora Papers. Moon enters Aquarius on Wednesday. Again, so Monday and Tuesday, Capricorn moon, a lot of, especially on Tuesday, is friction around how it's being handled. Mars in Libra squaring moon in Capricorn. How are we doing this? Like, there's a strong need for the reliability aspect of something, for how is it going to affect the government? How's it going to affect careers? How's it going to affect people in their day-to-day lives? And then you have Uranus, Chiron, Mercury, Mars, Sun, all affecting things in their positions, mostly in Libra. And so it's going to be, okay, now we have to combine, we have to be bipartisan. And there's going to be the strong push towards understanding the other side of the table, but still coming to a balance, coming to a solution. And that's what Moon in Scorpio wants to do, but also Moon in Capricorn is about how are we going to move forward with the system. And so that will also be part of it. Thursday of next week, conjunction of Moon and Saturn, sextile Venus to Moon, and Chiron sextile, but then in the afternoon, 1:09 p.m. Eastern, Moon trine Mercury, and that's an air energy. So that again is ramping up towards the information, clarity, 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 love, cooperation, balance, clarity, clarity, and probably we will find out about divorces, breakups of relationships, and even potentially relationships that have been around but kept that information hidden, and now it comes out. So I always tease my daughter about Taylor Swift already being married to her boyfriend. I always feel like, she's learned her lesson from having public relationships, and it would not surprise me if she got married on the sly and, who knows, maybe decides to have a kid without telling anyone. It would not surprise me in the least. Anyway, you know me, I've got Swiftie energy because of my daughter. Anyway, we'll get on with the rest of it. I have extras at the end that are like bloopers, so stay tuned for the end. Noise canceling headphones. I can hear everything inside my head. Anyway, Pandora Papers. So Monday, I was just going about my business, checking the news stories, and saw something about the release of Pandora Papers. And I'm like, well, what's that all about? And so I read that it is basically the release of a large quantity of research that's been going on for a while. Okay, so the Pandora Papers. I'm going to start this a third time. Pandora Papers came out to me when I was just online checking on the news and saw that there was a leak of 1.5 million documents by I'm going to say it off of the web because it's a fairly big name, International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, which by its name, it's a collective group of journalists from all over the world that have been researching this for months, I think even since April. And what they did was they have this enormous collection of data. It basically outs the finances of companies, of people associated with governments, of leaders, of celebrities, sports people, like all over the world, like many, many well-known people all over the world. And to me, I immediately was amazed, and I'm like, oh my gosh, here is basically a paper trail of truth. And the reason I say that is because that's what they say, mafia figures, they say, if you can't get them for the crimes they commit, follow the paper trail. And, they get them for tax fraud, they get them for whatever else has come about by following where the money is. And true with criminals or anyone else. So I'm thinking, wow, this is an enormous thing for our society that's going to really awaken everyone to what's really going on. Because, let's face it, it's a capitalistic environment, world, country. We're run on capitalism, we're run on money. Many, many countries all over the world, not all of them, but there are a lot of poor ones too. And that's also a way of looking at it, but through capitalistic eyes. So this consortium released all this information, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, when did that happen? So of course I had to research it. And before the podcast today, I was able to get a timestamp of the article, and I will put that information, I'll put the timestamp and the website on my in the description below, so you can go link to it and find out more if you want. But I looked into the timestamp on the web of this, and I found out when it was released, and it was basically 4:26 p.m. on the 3rd of October in English time. So I have done a chart for that. And I just want to say, before I really get into what the chart shows, that I did some more research, because my path of research, as you know, Scorpio rules research, and that's my moon. So of course I'm going to try and find out more information. And immediately upon hearing Pandora Papers, it brought to mind another astrologer who uses asteroids tremendously in her work. And I wanted to look up if there was an asteroid named Pandora. There is a moon named Pandora, but there is also an asteroid named Pandora. And so I went and found out about it. It turns out that it was discovered in 1858, and it was discovered on my birthday, September 10th. So not surprising that I would immediately hear about Pandora and think, wow, where does this come from? And what is the Pandora energy all about? So I'm going to read to you from a website called by a lady named leahwhitehorse.com, Leah. And so what she wrote about the myth of Pandora is, after Prometheus stole fire from the gods and basically gave it to humans, Zeus was furious. So he charged master craftsman, Hephaestus, sorry, to create a woman, Pandora, to bring great misery to the human race. Misery was the price to pay for fire. Pandora was gifted by various gods and goddesses with the every attribute a woman and man could desire: beauty, eloquence, talent, and more. Zeus gave Hermes the task of taking Pandora down to earth as a gift to Epimetheus, brother to Prometheus. Prometheus means forethought, means afterthought. Pandora was also given a jar sealed and told not to open it under any circumstances. Mercury, up to his usual tricks, whispered in Pandora's ear on the way down to earth, giving her the gift of insatiable curiosity along with her many talents. That doesn't make sense. Mercury gave, Mercury being the trickster, and that's not my words, whispered in Pandora's ear on the way down to earth, giving her the gift of insatiable curiosity, along with many other talents. Prometheus had the foresight to know the gods were angry and had warned his brother not to accept any gifts from Zeus. Epimetheus, however, was far too blinded by love or lust, and so went ahead and took his bride. Pandora could not resist the urge to open the jar, lifting up the lid, and all of the ills of the world flew out to plague mankind. Only hope remained in the jar. So hope was the last thing left in the jar. Interestingly, I thought about this, and my Aquarian bent in my chart brings me to this counterpoint with that information, that it was all the ills of mankind were rained down like a plague. And I'm thinking, okay, first off, the ills of mankind are basically ego, which removes us from understanding that we are spiritual creatures. And so there's that distancing that goes on with the ego. But, I'm a very adamant non-believer in sin. I believe that we all came to earth as divine creatures with purposes and reasons to be here. I don't believe we are evil out of the gate. I believe we are divine out of the gate. And so having this idea that all the ills will rain down on us, I don't necessarily believe that per se, but I think that it is definitely an energy that can stir up controversy, stir up difficulty, and bring out things that may have needed to be brought out. And having this particular time named after Pandora, I think that is maybe apropos, but it is also a manifestation of what has already come out, like what people have done. They've chosen to do. This is just an expression of what has already been going on. Pandora, the Pandora energy does not take ownership. It's like, don't shoot the messenger. The messenger brought it to the fore. It is not the messenger who did the bad. And that goes for the lady, the whistleblower from Facebook. She's not the one who's doing all these things. She's the one who brought it to light. And so, interestingly, right after that, throughout the week, I've been keeping an eye on New York Times or The Guardian or other CNN, anything out there. I haven't really looked into Fox yet to see what they're saying, but nobody's reporting on it. Here it is, what, 3-4 days afterwards, and not, which is really ironic to me because journalists are the ones that brought it to the fore. Yet the journalism of it, New York Times headline, is about the debt ceiling increase. I don't even see it mentioned. The next article is masks off or on. Companies facing pressure on the vaccine, Pfizer, the vaccine, Trump, let's see, Texas abortion law, China's power crunch. It's not even mentioned. It's not even mentioned on the first 5 articles of the New York Times. And then as far as the Guardian is concerned, Senate, Trump, national security, NBA, Texas, activists, AT&T. That may be the closest thing on the Guardian. One America News, AT&T funds right-wing channel Reuters reveals. So it's not even being promoted or presented in current media, which just shocks me because so many people, like over in England, I know for a fact that Boris Johnson is having to defend some of his connections to kind of shady dealings with people who had connections to oil. And, all of the figureheads in the world, as far as I can tell, are part of this whole thing in what papers were released. So it's really a fascinating news story to me. And like I said last week, the information is there and it's being attempted to be presented going anywhere, which is Mercury retrograde. So even in its own realm, it's presented by journalists, and even in its own realm, journalists are not reporting on it. So it's just an interesting Mercury retrograde for me. Now, the Pandora Papers. Released at 5-degree Aquarius rising. Obviously, of course it is, because it rules media, it rules technology, it rules humanitarianism and doing what's right for the collective. And Saturn is 6 degrees Aquarius at the moment of this release. So 5-degree ascendant, 6-degree Saturn, also retrograde, Jupiter retrograde in the first house in Aquarius. So when those planets go direct next week, when Mercury goes direct this 18th, I believe it is. Yeah, 18th, and Jupiter goes direct next Monday. I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of the bigger news stories when the information really starts to get momentum, and it will be like bam in the news. That's my prediction, because that's the energy coming in. Friday of this week is Moon in Aquarius, so it's going to be triggering this information. It's almost as if it's a sleeping giant, and it will be coming into our awareness, our consciousness, as the moon hits that Saturn, hits that Jupiter, and they both turn direct at this, just after Aquarian moon. Pluto in the 12th house in Capricorn of this chart, the hidden. I would say probably because it is authority figures and the hierarchy. They're working behind the scenes to try and keep this information on the DL. And that means that it's not in the New York Times. It's not in the papers on the front page. Some did put that out there on Monday. Haven't seen a lot about it. Haven't seen a lot about it since. Venus is at the midheaven, and she's in Scorpio. So of course she's doing the research. She knows what she's talking about, and she isn't trying to Pluto. So there's going to be a lot of major energy hitting this. And Mercury retrograde at 22 in Libra, and remember what 22 of a cardinal sign is. When Uranus and Pluto joined at 22, that was the impeachment of Trump. It was also the insurrection earlier in the year. And here now we've got this information coming out that's going to affect world leaders. Mercury at 22 of a cardinal sign. We've got Mars at 12 degrees of Libra and Sun at 10 on the release. So again, Mercury retrograde, meaning the information still finding it difficult to move forward. And then Mars at 12 degrees, Sun 2 degrees away from hitting that Mars, which happens this weekend. Sun, Mars hitting, and then Moon joins up in Libra. Let me see. Oh no, I take it back. So the Moon was in Virgo at the release. So there's this humility about it and a service energy. Moon in Virgo is very much service oriented. So this is like, we want the best for what's going on. We want to impart information as a service. It is the ruler of teachers, and it can be print media. And and then the Moon joined up with Sun and Mars on the same day that Pluto, Pluto went direct on the 6th. That's the day they joined up, which was yesterday on Wednesday. And so there's this stellium in Libra in air, which is information and communication energy. So cooperation, finding the balance, but finding where we can get the balance and the cooperative diplomatic energy to move forward with what has to be said. But yeah, Moon in Virgo can also mean there's an independent nature, a loner kind of nature about it, but very service oriented and work oriented, that the work was done. Let me tell you, the work was done on this information. Absolutely. Neptune is in the 2nd house. So definitely it's about money. And Neptune is the dream, the vision, which is in trine to Venus at that time. Women energy, women are going to pave the way. I find it interesting that Venus at 25 Scorpio, trine to Neptune at 20 Pisces. And this is also a competing story with the Facebook, which I didn't even remember about that, the Facebook outage. We'll talk about that in a second. So Venus, Neptune, trine. Remember what I said about the trines. They can bring friction. They can bring things that are uncomfortable to look at. Venus is the woman who is the whistleblower. I'm sorry, I don't know her name off the top of my head, but the Facebook whistleblower in conjunction with Facebook going down. I mean, how wild was that? So she came up to testify in government right now, the week, I'm assuming it was Congress. Does anybody ever testify in Senate? I know there's Senate hearings. Senate hearings happen. I'm aware, but it seems like it's always testifying in front of Congress. So she was testifying about Facebook. And so Facebook, there's another thing. I can't remember if I dissected Facebook last week, but Facebook, I did put it up on Instagram or possibly Facebook. The astrology page, Angelic Zodiac at Facebook. The information is Facebook had a Mercury ruled Venus retrograde when the IPO happened. That means that Venus was in Gemini and it had just gone into Gemini like 3 days before, and it was retrograde in Gemini 3 days before the IPO. And every time Mercury retrogrades, I noticed that Facebook has difficulty. They have difficulty with their product. They have difficulty with their communications. They get hacked. They have outages every single time. So, man, both fronts getting hit. And so obviously Facebook did not consult an astrologer when they released their IPO. But yeah, notice that when Mercury retrogrades, but notice it probably more in the air signs because that's the Venus. Venus rules the money. IPOs there are two things I look at with a company. I look at the incorporation date, if I can find it, and the IPO when they go public. And those two dates can give you a snapshot of how that company is going to interact in the world, what its face to the world is, what hits it, when things can go down, when planets align and adjust to their natal chart. Okay, So anyway, as far as the Pandora Papers are concerned, Uranus and Taurus falls in the house of home and family in the release chart. And we've got also the North Node is at 3 degrees of Sagittarius. It falls in just past the midheaven. So there will be tremendous awakening and fallout. I absolutely believe that, because the identity of that event is Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. And we have yet to really hit that time, the Aquarian age. But Pluto going into Aquarius, when it goes into Aquarius early on, 6 degrees, it will join up with the Saturn of this chart. And so it has legs, it has repercussions for years to come. It will probably be looked on as a turning point, as a watershed moment in the world financially. Yeah. And so, of course, as we look towards Saturn and Jupiter going direct next week in Aquarius, Aquarian energy the air energy can be really associated with dry and clear, and could be like dry and clear and crisp. I know Capricorn energy, weather-wise and feeling-wise, can be chilly. Capricorns can be emotionally colder at times. They're very logical and literal, like I've said before. They're very reality-based. And so that is a very unemotional type of energy. And we see that as the planets go through Capricorn, and when they get to Aquarius, it's like it clears the emotion out. It clears the fog of the water. And that's, low humidity and clarity, mental clarity. And when that happens, we will see things for what they are. So when Pluto, a deeply emotional, watery energy of a planet, gets to Aquarius in a year and a half, we're going to see it light up, that Saturn and Jupiter. And then again, it's a couple degrees off that 22 degree that we saw, but Pluto's direct now. I'm recording this during Pluto direct. Pluto will not get to 22 degrees Capricorn for another 265 years. So we are past that drama of Uranus squaring Pluto at 22. It was Uranus, I believe. Where was Uranus at that time? Was it in Libra? I think it must have been, nope, couldn't have been Libra. So it was Aries. Yes, Uranus and Aries, pardon me. When Uranus was in Aries in around 2015, we had a square. And so that was significant. It was between, I think it was 15 degrees to 22 degrees as they retrograded. The planets were retrograding that year. And then we had that 22 degree at the beginning of the year with the stellium around Capricorn. And I think it was also a stellium last year, the year before. Both Januaries of 2020 and 2021 had a strong Pluto connection to the transits. Anyway, you know me, I can go on, and I don't want to go on and on for you because it can get tedious. That being said, please do like and subscribe. Check out my podcast in audio form if you would prefer. That's on SoundCloud. Everything's in the description below. And I really hope you get out and enjoy this really lovely weekend. I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air, quite literally. So take it easy, and we'll see you next week. Bye. Oh my gosh. So much credit. Hey, and welcome to the October. Oh, phew. Joining up with Mars imbues the beginning of the day with, sorry. It's so funny because I have earbuds in my ears to record because it picks up my voice. It's my microphone, but I have a little sinus blockage, I think, today. And the pods make me a little stuffy, and it's just odd because I can't hear. I hear everything inside my head, so I sound really stuffy. But I'll probably cut all this out, and you won't know it unless you watch the end. I've
Hi, this is Shelley. Thank you for joining us this week. To contact me for a private reading, go to angeliczodiac.com under the Readings tab. Background music was provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Music provided on show-by-show basis will be credited within the body of the show. For more info on my art, go to shelleyoverton.com. That's SHELLEYOVERTON.com. To purchase my ebook, Learn Astrology, you can find it at angeliczodiac.com, including discounts. Be sure to check back next week and subscribe through iTunes at Astro Energy Astrology Show.